Ryan has to pay off a debt to the mafia. He used to work as a cook a long time ago, but he never expected to be told to work instead of his friend and cook such dishes. This Pennywise recaps, and today we're reviewing the thriller What You Wish For. Get ready for incredible plot twists. Ryan is forced to leave his country and move to Latin America. There, he meets an old friend and colleague, Jack, who invites Ryan to stay with him for a while. Ryan doesn't find common ground with the local taxi drivers, but with the help of a code, he gets into Jack's house. Upon Jack's arrival, it turns out that this is not his own home, but rather a place rented by an agency for an upcoming event. The old friends talk about life and work as chefs. The next morning, they go for a run in the picturesque neighborhood, and then visit a place where the atmosphere of poverty reigns. They enter a cafe where they are joined by a tourist named Alice. The friends invite her to a cooking match to find out which of the two friends is the better cook. Blindfolded, Alice tries the dishes and eventually chooses Ryan as the winner. After a swim in the pool, Alice jokingly steals Jack's watch, which he once lost to Ryan in a card game. When Ryan makes sandwiches, Alice decides to stay the night with Jack, which disappoints Ryan. In the morning, he receives a threatening message from his creditor, who warns him that even in another country, he will be tracked and found. Jack says that he has taken Alice to a hotel and has to work, so he asks Ryan to stay home. Ryan takes the opportunity to check Jack's bank account balance. There, he finds more than £1.5 million. With a sigh, he closes the page and deletes his browser history. In the evening, after Jack returns, the friends sit by the pool and discuss life. The next morning, Ryan finds Jack hanging from a rope. Realizing what happened, Ryan comes up with a cunning plan to solve all his problems. He carefully places the body and cuts the rope, then resets Jack's phone to factory settings and calls the bank to recover the password to the account, which he allegedly forgot after the accident with amnesia. In order to gain full access to the account, he needs to appear in person at the bank in the UK with documents. Ryan orders a fake driver's license with Jack's data and his photo on a Chinese website, and then buys a ticket to London. At this time, the creditor contacts him again, demanding £50,000 within 2 days, otherwise his mother will die. Ryan starts calling his friends, trying to borrow money, but everyone refuses, knowing about his addiction to gambling. When Ryan returns to the house, he finds the organizers from the agency, Imogen and Morris, who mistake him for Jack. Ryan asks for an advance of £300,000, which Imogen transfers to a creditor's account. She asks if everything is ready for the event. Ryan has no idea what he is supposed to do and asks various questions. It turns out that the event is tomorrow, and he hasn't prepared anything for it. Imogen insists on going to the church to pick out the meat. Suddenly, Ryan realizes why Jack was getting paid so much for one dinner, and why he was feeling so guilty. They were cooking human meat. Imogen hints that if he doesn't prepare a delicious meal by tomorrow night, his life will end sooner than he thought. Finding no alternative, Ryan agrees. Imogen reassures him, explaining that the agency's activities result in the deaths of an average of 75 people a year, 50 of whom are eaten, and the rest are accidental victims. Ryan chooses a young woman and her mother. They chase them through the city, but lose them in their home neighborhood. They are helped by a local mechanic, Jose, who confirms that Ryan is the right man for the job. He leads them to a car that has supposedly broken down. When Jose gets under the car, Maurice puts a silencer on his gun and shoots him. They are about to take the body out, but a policeman suddenly appears with the women they were chasing. Maurice introduces herself as an assistant architect, and they are looking for a place to build a hotel. After that, hanging the corpse by its legs, Ryan has to cut the victim open, which he does under the supervision of the customers. In the evening, after finishing the preparation, he reflects on his fate, but is forced to continue with the task. But there is good news. A package with a fake license has arrived from China. The man checks Jack's fake and real ID, then quietly takes his things and goes to the car, not noticing the surprised looks of the gardeners. He drives away, but the accident attracts the attention of Maurice, to whom Ryan lies and says that the cause is faulty brakes. Ryan talks about how he lives with his job. In particular, he wonders how he can quit without paying with his life. The killer tells us about a woman who, instead of a bonus, asked for a meeting with the management and then sent a letter saying that she had quit her job and became a personal chef for a wealthy family. No one heard from her again. Realizing that there was no way out, Ryan began to prepare a food menu in consultation with Imogene. Finding that there are 3 hours left before the first meal, he begins to prepare the food. When it gets dark, the first guests arrive at the house in evening clothes. However, the atmosphere of the evening is disturbed by the appearance of the police, Officer Gallo and Detective Ruiz, who want to talk to Ryan, who hides behind the legend of the construction business. The detective can't be quickly dismissed, as the missing Jose is his nephew, and he has a personal interest in the investigation. Imogen offers Ruiz a taste of the soup ironically made from his nephew. While they are eating, Imogen brings Ryan out for a conversation to admonish him for his irresponsibility. The agency has 3 protocols in case of police intervention, and Ryan must be prepared for each of them. His incompetence in matters of architecture puts the event in jeopardy. Soon the guests arrive and are served the first course. Ruiz talks to Maurice and recalls how Imogen told him that Jose had gone on a spontaneous trip. Young people who regularly sell goods in the neighborhood and send emails to their relatives describe the same reasons for their disappearance. Ruiz decides to stay and find out what's going on. After greeting the guests, the police are about to leave, but one of the guests invites them to the table. Ruiz accepts the invitation, and a disgruntled Imogene takes the guest out for a private conversation, explaining that they are at great risk of being exposed. Soon, another unforeseen situation arises. A tourist, Alice, arrives at the house. Imogene wants to send her away, but she asks to use the restroom so as not to contaminate the well-kept garden. The organizer takes her to the kitchen, where he hands her over to Ryan and tells him to get rid of the intruder. Imogene thinks that the cook is Jack, but Alice knows that he is not. Ryan confesses that he's substituting for his friend, but doesn't explain why. Alice asks about Jack's whereabouts, but Ryan nervously tries to get her out. As he leaves, Alice notices Jack's watch on his hand and sees a liquid that looks like blood in the pot. This arouses her terrible suspicions, which are close to reality. Ryan explains that his friend gave him the watch as a parting gift. While Alice is trying to start the car, Detective Ruiz is at the table talking to the guests, who, knowing the truth about the dish, are teasing the policeman, but not too openly. It looks even more eerie. The detective praises the dish and wants to know what it is made of. He asks the waitress to call the cook. Ryan asks Imogene how to contact the agency to leave this job for good. She admits that this is impossible, and even the chef Maurice told him about could not get out of this case. And in the end, at her last dinner, she became the dish herself. A confused Ryan returns to the kitchen and sees Alice. Her car broke down, and Maurice volunteered to give her a ride into town. Looking at Jose's tongue, Ryan notices that he had herpes, which puts him in a stalemate. The guests have ordered tongue for dessert, but the ingredients are out. Imogen even suggests that Ryan cook his own tongue. At this point, Alice enters the kitchen, a lonely girl in a foreign country who no one will look for. While serving dessert, Ryan hands the detective a note, and they meet in the restroom, where the cook tells him about the fate of Jose and Alice. Ruiz tears up the note, but at that moment, Imogene knocks on the door. The guest pretends that he is simply not used to fine dining, says goodbye, and leaves. However, as soon as Maurice stops following him, the detective returns to the scene. Ryan takes him to a secret basement where he shows him the evidence, the remains of Jose and Alice. Unfortunately, the detective forgot his phone in the kitchen and does not remember the numbers of his colleagues. He tells Ryan to bring the phone, waiting in the garden so as not to attract the attention of the guests. Maurice suspects something is wrong and goes into the garden. After sneaking into the basement through another entrance, he uses a chainsaw to cut the detective open. Upon returning, Maurice orders Ryan to get rid of the evidence, boil the remains, and throw the broth into a pit and bury it. Meanwhile, Imogen composes a letter to Detective Ruiz's sister, explaining Jose's sudden escape and the chase after him. The next morning, the three organizers meet for breakfast. Imogen says that Ryan's dinner is already lined up from all over the world, so they will repeat the event in a month. Maurice implants Ryan with a GPS chip because the previous one showed that Jack was dead. This unfortunate technical miscommunication gave Ryan his friend's nightmare life. Ryan heads to the airport while Maurice sets Jack's old car on fire behind his back. At the airport bar, he talks to a random fellow traveler, telling him about his job, which, without some details, looks like a dream job. Even as Ryan, he calls himself Jack, because now it is his identity and his life until the very end. Thank you for being with us. Subscribe to the channel, like us, and be sure to click on the bell to stay up to date with our new videos.